Salvete Latin 2. This is Magister Hodges, and I apologize. This is the going to be the big presentation over all this stuff for week 1, and I am releasing it on Friday of the first week. And I do really want to apologize for that. It has been really crazy over here with teachers being out and we are unable to find subs. So consequently, I've been teaching a lot of Spanish during my planning periods when I'm supposed to be doing this class. So for those of you who are been totally caught up and totally on top of everything, you've probably logged in multiple times. You're wondering like, what the heck is going on? That's what's up, and that's what's been going on with me. And I apologize. Hopefully this calms down soon and we can either find subs or these teachers come back. And I will not be, so behind. But I added a couple more assignments, and I'm going to go over all those things for the first week with y'all. And consequently, I am going to obviously extend the deadline for all the things for week 1 until the end of next week, Friday, which I believe is August 20th, alongside the week 2 stuff. So without further ado, let's just get into it. And like I said, my apologies. And if there's any issues, just message me on It's Learning. I'd be happy to talk and we can work something out. No one here will suffer due to me, or your grade won't suffer at least. You may be suffering in here. I'm going to stop talking on that now. All right. So for this week, here's just the overall calendar. This is the master presentation. And real quick, before I talk about this, let's go over to It's Learning. I can show you where you can find this. Under the planner for each week, you will see a link to this. It says weeks 1 through 6 master presentation, and I'll be updating this as we progress. As we go through, I'll keep adding things to this. This is where you're going to find all the notes that I'm covering. This is going to end up being a pretty big presentation. It should cover everything that we're going to need going forward. So that's where you'll find this. You'll also find the link to this video in here, as well as all other assignments. The assignments I'll also be referencing in this presentation. If you follow this link right here, it says review assignments. This will just take you to one page that has everything that we have in Google Classroom right now. And that's where all the assignments are housed, is Google Classroom. If you need, if you have not joined our Google Classroom yet, later on in this video and presentation, I'll give you the code for you to join. So just look out for that. All right, so without further ado, let's go back and what's that? There you go. Okay, so for the first week, a lot of you have already submitted your pre-assessment. I look forward to looking over those and giving you guys feedback. Our tests for this class will look a lot like this, for better and for worse. So I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to get comfortable with it, with that format, and also to see what you remembered and don't remember. This is going to be useful information for me. As it says in the presentation, it was not going to go in for a grade. And as I said the first time, it will not go in for a grade. That is true. But please do it, and please do it to the best of your ability so I know where everybody is. The 2 things that are going to be graded this week are 2 assignments called the Noun Review Summary Statement and the Noun Declension Quiz, and I'll give you guys links to those. Those are both brand new. Those are not the same thing as the review quiz that I gave at the beginning of the week about nouns, nor is it the practice assignment that I've also recently added. But there will be a link specifically to these assignments later in the presentation, and I'll show you guys where you can find them. But this week it's all about nouns and adjectives, focusing on the nominative, accusative, and ablative. We're going to be just talking about how to decline all of them. For those of you who are in my Latin 1 class, this is going to add a little bit more information that we did not get to last year, but this is where we're going to start from. But weeks 1 through 6 will be our review, and we will have our first exam on the week 6, which is the week right before fall break, which will be the Unit 1 exam. And as we get closer to that day, we'll talk about it. All right, so the noun review. This is going to be notes, basically, and you have access to all of these. I don't have slotted notes or anything. This is just information. Feel free to pause or fast forward if you already know this stuff. If you don't, feel free to watch it, again and again to cover things that you need. Before you started, here's the Google Classroom code, by the way, for those of you who don't have it. This was the noun review quiz. This was just a one attempt quiz by me for you to take, just so I can see what you guys know about nouns. A lot of you have already completed this and submitted it, and with decent grades. For those of you who did not get a great grade on it, that's okay. That is not going in as a grade. It's just to see what you know and can remember, or what you learned, or anything like that. It's just for me to know where everybody's at. So a wide range of grades is fine. So try your best, please, so I know where you're at. Okay, so let's start by going over some important definitions. I'm going to close my window here because I think I'm blocking things out. Actually, I have no idea what that button does. Okay, so follow along on the presentation then. Sorry about that. I won't do that in the future. Okay, declensions, cases, numbers. These three terms are going to be used a lot. A declension is a group of nouns that share similar patterns of case endings. First, second, third declension. A noun never changes declensions. That is its family, and a noun's declension tells you all the different types of endings you'll see on it. Case endings. So what is a case? A case is the different form that a noun takes, meaning the way it changes, the way it looks, and that depends on its role in the sentence, whether it's a subject, direct object, etc. We're going to go over the different cases here in a second. Last definition at the top is number. Number is not first, second, or third declension. Number tells you just whether the noun is singular, whether there's one thing, like puella, girl, or plural, puellae, girls. There's one thing, singular, two things, there's a bunch of them. Okay. So the different cases are listed down here. Their general roles and then their descriptions are also right here. I'm going to go through those and give a little explanation. So first case is the nominative case. This is the base form of the noun. This is typically what you see first in vocab lists. When a noun is in its nominative case, that means it's the subject of the sentence. And if something is the subject of the sentence, that means it's the noun doing the action or being described. It is what the sentence is about. Okay. Genitive. The genitive case, for those of you in my class last year, we did not get to the genitive. So this is a quick overview of it. We're going to talk about it in way in depth later. So the genitive case is a noun is in the genitive case when it's showing possession. For example, one second. Well, that was fun. I had to go dispose of a body. Either way, so genitive, nouns are in the genitive case when they're showing possession. So the example I give here is the friend of the merchant. If I was going to say that in Latin, I would say amicus, friend, mercatoris, of the merchant. The word mercator changes because you're not saying just the merchant, you're saying of the merchant. And we're going to talk more about that later, so don't stress too much about that. Dative as well, something we did not quite get to in my class last year. We touched on it a little bit, but not all the way. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that more. That is a noun is in the dative case when it's an indirect object. And that is when you're giving something to someone or doing something for someone. If you remember the word dot, meaning give, you see dot at the beginning of this word, dative. And you really only see these when someone's being given something. The example I give here is, I give a gift to the merchant. So if I was saying to the merchant there, I would say mercatori. It's actually really similar to just putting the word ad for to in front of something. The Romans had multiple ways to say that. You could say ad mercatorum, or you could just say mercatori. There are some other differences, but I don't want to get too in the weeds on that. Accusative nouns are in the accusative case when they're a direct object in the sentence. That means they're receiving the action. The example I always use is Billy punches Johnny. And in that sentence, Billy is your subject. He's doing the action. Johnny is the one being punched. He's receiving the action. So he would be accusative. The ablative case is, for now, the object of some of SID space, what we call SID space prepositions. We'll review those in a couple weeks. Objects of, so in the street, away from the house, you would see the word street and house in those phrases would be in the ablative case. And then lastly, there's the vocative. We're not going to talk a lot about the vocative because it's just is kind of there. You use the vocative when you're directly addressing someone. For example, if you're saying like, hey, guy, guy would be vocative because you're addressing him. Typically, it looks the same as the nominative. except in the second declension when the US is replaced with an E. So if I was saying, hey, friend, I would say, salve, amiche. This doesn't happen a whole lot. It's not worth focusing on an insane amount right now. So that's a brief overview of the different cases. Now we're going to go and look at how you go about figuring out what declension a noun belongs to, and then figuring out all of its endings and what they look like. Okay. Okay, so actually here's an example of the first declension chart. You'll see here that you have, I just used an example, the word puella for girl. In red, you will see all the different endings of the first declension. First declension nouns typically end with, have a lot of A's towards the end. That's how you can recognize it. First declension, first letter of the alphabet. I have a link to all these charts that you can use for reference at any time. This tells you the case names, and it gives you the example with the endings as well as how that would be used in a sentence. The underlined part of the sentence is the example that I'm using. So hopefully you find this helpful. You can take a second and look this over. You do not have to copy this down if you do not want to. Keep in mind, like I said, I have a link to this that you guys will have access to. This is just here to talk about it. Okay. Second declension, a lot of U's and US's, I's and O's in these. Us, I, o, o, I, orum, is, os, is. You'll see that different E down here for cookwe. Hey, cook, sawe cookwe. Yeah, so there's some examples. This is what it looks like when you're talking about second declension neuter and not masculine. The only difference is that the nominative and accusative singular are both um, and the nominative and accusative plural both end with a, as opposed to I and os and us and um over here. Then we have the third declension. That's the weird one where rex is our example, but there's no common ending here. Like a third declension noun can end with whatever it wants to end with in the and when it's nominative, and that can make things kind of confusing. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. You'll see the rest of these are regis, regi, regum, and you may be wondering, how can I tell, since this is X, that it'll change to a G later? We're going to talk about that too. So just take a second and look this over. If you want to pause the video, you're welcome to. Like I said, this week we're going to be focusing mostly on nominative, accusative, and ablative, but we're going to learn how to basically fully decline, take any noun, figure out what declension it is, and then properly form it in all these ways. Okay. Third declension neuter. Once again, nominative and accusative are the same, and when they're plural, they end with an A. Okay, so obviously you can't click this through the video. That's why I have a link to the presentation on its learning. Please go there. You can find a link to the declension chart here. I'll also have another link in our resources. Okay, so this is a guy named Hypause. If Latin 3 or AP Latin is your goal, then I would highly suggest memorizing these endings, these case endings of the first and second and third declension at the very least. Because that cuts down on a lot of time when you're trying to figure out what a noun is. If Latin 2 is the end of the road for you, you can get by without having them memorized, but you're going to spend a lot of time looking up these charts. And over time, hopefully, you kind of absorb the ones you use a lot. I know last year people were pretty familiar with the difference between nominative and accusative by the end of the year, some with the ablative as well. And that's good. Memorize what you can. But if you want to try and memorize this, I suggest the power of song, or either that or just repeating it to yourself until you feel mindless. This video right here is a guy named Hypause. He is a middle school teacher in Missouri, and he has made a lot of very strange, borderline creepy music videos with songs to help students review and memorize these things. Highly suggest you check it out. You may not like it. If you don't really care. It's hilarious, and if you don't think so, you're wrong. His videos are helpful. And in these, he goes over the endings of the first three declensions. I'm not going to play it here just for the sake of time. Oh, or I am. Whoops, it heard me. Okay. And I'm going to pick this up in a part 2 because I've taken a long time. And so I will see you in a minute because I'm coming up on my limit. Valete.